Hi everybody, you're here with Poo Wright-Pulliam, artist and bird fanatic, and I'm here today to teach you a little bit about wildflowers. I am self-taught in wildflowers. I started learning them in about 1989, realizing that my grandma had a brain that just wouldn't quit. She died at 96 and was snap on until 95. Could remember everything. And so I thought, if I'm going to live to be that old, I need to teach myself something every day. So I started learning wildflowers. And in the process, I became a teacher for Elder Hostel. You know it probably today as Rhodes Scholar. Used to be called Elder Hostel. And I taught for BYU of Idaho, CSI here locally in the Wood River Valley, and also for ISU over in Pocatello. I think I have that right. Anyway, I had a lot of fun doing that. I taught birds and wildflowers to those groups, and in the process just kept learning and learning and learning. So as an artist, I've been painting and drawing since I was tiny, ever since I can remember. And I have, my dream has always been to be a full-time artist. And now that I'm retired, it may happen. So here we go. Let me show you a couple of pieces. These owls back here are some of my bird paintings, which I showed in the last class. I hope you were able to join me for my last two classes on how to field sketch birds. If not, go look for those as well. But these are my owl set from IBO, Intermountain Bird Observatory, where I was able to see birds in the hand, take photographs, and be able to paint from those. So I like these portrait types back here right behind me. Then I was able to do an artist in residency at Craters of the Moon, and I'm going to, well, let's see, those aren't the flowers. That'll be over there. The Craters of the Moon was a really fun one. I painted everything that I could identify, and in this whole process I've taught myself basically birds and wildflowers. And as a master naturalist, a master gardener, and a master birder, I just love to keep learning and learning and learning. So I know a little about a whole lot. Can be dangerous sometimes, which means also that I like a good debate to make sure that we're identifying everything properly. So let me show you a couple of my fine art paintings these are from the City of Rocks, where I'm still doing an artist in residency this year, and I did one last year, 2019 and 2020, if I get to go back this year with COVID-19. So yes, this is a COVID-19 stay-at-home production that we're doing here today. I was hoping to do this class outside, but that's not going to work right now. So anyway, here's a little bit of my art. This one, first one, is a collage that I did of the wildflowers at City of Rocks. This is a Sitka columbine, a leopard lily, a shooting star, and bluebells. So I really enjoyed putting this painting together of the flowers. So that's my fine artwork there. And here's a nice big one of a Rocky Mountain iris. I love this one. I just love Rocky Mountain iris. And we'll learn about irises and sepals and petals also that might look kind of the same, a little bit different, but a lot of us think this is a petal, this is a sepal, this is the petal, but we're about to learn about that. So on we go. This is a perfect flower. So the top part of the flower is called the corolla, the underside of the flower is called the calyx, and the entire flower head is called the perianth. That is a perfect flower with all of these parts all in nice order. Here again we have the perfect flower. We have the petal, we have the sepal underneath, and this is the pistil, the female part. We have the stigma up at the top where it accepts the pollen. We have the style that the pollen goes down to fertilize the ovary down here. So we have superior and inferior ovaries. This is superior above, and then sometimes it is below the sepals, and that would be inferior. Here we have the male parts. This is the anther, the filament here, This has the pollen on it, and this whole thing is called the stamen. So remember those two terms. We're going to talk about those a lot. Again, this is the perfect flower. This is a composite flower. Dandelion is a composite, a sunflower is a composite. Many of the flowers that we look at are composites, and some that look like composites actually aren't. And when we do our field trip, we'll hopefully see those, or you'll be able to recognize those when you go into the field yourself after we're done with this class. So a composite actually has, composite meaning several flowers or a lot of flowers in one. So we have this type of flower, which you'll see in the center of the sunflower. And this one is a disc flower. We also have a ray flower here. So this we think of as the petals of a single flower, and this part as the center of the flower, which actually it's just a whole bunch of single flowers. And if you use your binoculars, the cool thing about binoculars, if you don't have a magnifying glass, if you have binoculars with you and you're in the field, you turn them backwards and you look through the hole backwards, and you can hold something up really close to it as a magnifying glass and be able to look at that. That's a really fun thing to do. So in the composite flower on the disc, we have, here's the stigma, here's the anther. So there's female, there's male, and then here's the petal. And the petals are all fused. Here's the pappus, which is what we see floating around in a dandelion afterwards. That'll be that open little feathery umbrella. And here's the ovary, which is like the sunflower seed that we see. On the disc flower, or I'm sorry, on the ray flower, we have the fused petals here, which look like one petal. It's actually fused petals together, and you can see the little ribs in it when you look up close. Here we have the anther, the female part, or I'm sorry, the male part. We have the petals, we have the pappus again, and we have the ovary. And sometimes on the outer rim of those, the seeds are, or the ovary is infertile. So that is a composite flower, and we'll look up close at some of those. Getting into the leaves, we have many different types of leaves, and it's really good to take note of the leaves. So many of us go out and we just look at the flower because it's the most beautiful part. But in able to identify wildflowers, you need to look at the leaves as well, because there's a lot of flowers that look alike, but the leaves will be different, and that's how you're going to identify it, is a lot of times off of the leaves. So we have the blade, the petiole, which is from the stem to the leaf, and that's the full leaf section. The way that they can look, though, we have an entire leaf. A lot of us are very used to this kind. This might be on a syringa. We have a toothed leaf, which is serrated along the edges. That might be like a rose. Think of a rose leaf. The lobed, as in a columbine or a meadow rue, with all of these lobes, rounded lobes around the edges. We have a linear leaf in some of the irises and the lilies. Lanceolate leaf, which is kind of like this one, but if you'll notice, this one is wide here. This one is wide here in the middle, more in the middle. So that's lanceolate, and that's like a mule's ear. We have a bog orchid type in this ovate, which look at all these kind of ribs on here. This one's cool, but this one's more of just a basic oval-shaped leaf, ovate. This is the way the leaves can be arranged. So we have alternate, so they're alternate here. We have opposite. This is like a penstemon. This might be a false forget-me-not. This means a lot to what the plant could be too. We need to pay attention to these. This is a whorled, W-H-O-R-L-D-E-D, and that goes around in one place, lots of leaves in one place going around. This would be like a valerian. Here we have palmate, like a lupin. And here we have a compound leaf. And the roses, this is called a leaflet, and the roses have leaves like this, where they come off of the same stem. It looks like it's a whole bunch of different ones, but it's actually one leaf that has a bunch of separate little leaflets. here's a couple more leaf shapes. Mariposa lily would be like a phylloform, a grass-like leaf. Obovate, see it's whiter here now. We talked about whiter here. We talked about whiter here in the middle. And now we have whiter here at the top. Here we have reniform. And let's see, some of the water plants will have leaves like this. Undulate, meaning that it waves on the edges versus the one that was straighter spiked little leaves. So that's undulate. And then in the flowers themselves, aside from the perfect flower, we have radially symmetrical and bilaterally symmetrical. So when you look at a radially symmetrical flower, any way that you divide any line down the middle, it looks exactly the same on both sides. Bilaterally symmetrical, any way you divide, it doesn't look exactly alike unless you go straight down the middle, maybe, depending on the flower that it is. But you can see all of these different little shapes. This is a monkey flower, and this is probably a phlox or something that I drew. Yeah, this one's a great one. The way that the flowers are arranged on the stem will tell us a whole lot too. So scapos, meaning one at the very top on a single stem with the leaves at the base. This is scapos, like a dandelion. This is a spike, and this looks a lot like this. This is a raceme. This is a spike. A spike, you'll notice that the petioles are right here, if any, right here against the main stem. And on the raceme, the petiole, which is the little branch that goes from the main branch to the flower, is longer. So there's a difference here. They're both alternate, but look at the stem length here and here. So that's the difference on these. Here we have a panicle, meaning that there's a branch that comes off with many little flowers on each one, and they're usually alternate, back and forth. Some at the top, but you'll see that here's one that comes off, here's one, here's another one this side in the middle, coming off this way, this way, this way. A corymb, they all come off below each other in a nice little beautiful, not quite like an umbrella, because the umbel is like the umbrella. So see the difference here? They all come off in one spot here and make the umbrella that we think of, normal umbrella, umbel. And then the corymb, they come off more, alternate each other and more flat. So all of these, if you can keep these in your mind, all of these will give you an idea of what we're looking for when we're trying to identify wildflowers. So when we're looking at wildflowers also, it tells us a lot on how big the flower is. So we can have a big one like this that is insect or animal pollinated, or we can have these little wind pollinated ones. Any flower that's usually really tiny and small is wind pollinated. So this that I've drawn here is a meadow rue. They're very cool. We have a whole bunch of these in bloom right now, right below my house. So here's the male. This is a male and female plant, separate from each other. This is the male with the little dangly parts, blowing in the wind here with the pollen on the end. And then here's the female, open and ready to receive the pollen from the male. So the wind blows, it blows it from here, and it lands on here and is accepted by the ovary in the middle. So that's just a real quick note on pollination. Then I have to show you these two really cool flowers. I have this book called The Sex Life of Flowers. I also have one called The Sex Life of Birds. They're very interesting. But here we have a bucket orchid. This one is from tropical Central America. And this is called the bucket orchid, and it takes prisoners. So what this one does that's really unique is the bee, which is the male Anglosine, I think I'm saying that right, bees. So they come along, they see this beautiful flower, they come up into the tube, and they come down into here. They end up coming down into here to get the liquid. And when they get down in here and land in the liquid, they can't get back out. The only way they can find out is this way. And as they come out this way, the flower itself squeezes down on the bee and puts these pollen packs on its back. And once those pollen packs are stuck, then it opens back up and releases the bee, and he goes to the next flower and goes in, does the same thing, falls in. When he comes out here, then it removes the pollen packs on a different plant. So that one is considered taking prisoners, and I just think it's so amazing. Nature is so amazing. And this next one does mimicry. So this one, this is an orchid, a hammer orchid. It's designed to mimic the female of the thinned wasp. And because I'm self-taught, I always don't know how to pronounce things. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, so she looks like, this part right here looks like the female of this wasp. The females have not arrived back yet. The males all come together and they are searching for females. So when they see this orchid, they think that this is their female. They land on here, and the weight of it snaps this joint, and it flips the bee upside down against the top part of the orchid, and it slaps some pollen packs on its back, and away it goes to the next plant. I just think those things are so fun and amazing. So anyway, we're going to look for all kinds of things like that. The next part of the class, this is a faster one. So the next part of the class, we're going to be learning how to sketch in the field and how to look for those differences in the plants. So I'll see you at part 2. Thanks for being here.